Have you ever found yourself sitting in the dark, bathed in the soft blue glow of a screen, just wondering where the last 3 hours went? You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that quiet, almost intimate moment of profound frustration. You have a life you want to build, goals you desperately want to achieve, and yet there you are, literally anchored to the couch. It's a painful, entirely relatable reality for almost all of us today. Seriously, why is it that we can spend 3 straight hours scrolling Instagram, watching other people live out their dreams, but we can't sit still for 15 minutes to study the one thing that could actually change our own lives? Why can you sit endlessly binging a show, but feel completely paralyzed when it's time to get up and work out? It makes you wonder, why does your own mind seem perfectly engineered to sabotage you at exactly the moments you need it most? It's so easy to look in the mirror and think, I just don't have discipline, I'm weak, I'm just lazy. Let's shatter that lie right now. It is the biggest myth we tell ourselves. Willpower is a limited resource. It runs out every single day, no matter who you are or how strong you think you are. What actually dictates what you desire to do and what you avoid isn't a character flaw. It's biology. Your biological systems have simply been hijacked. To fix this, we have to pull back the curtain and look at our first topic, the biology of sabotage. We really need to understand the exact mechanics of what's happening inside your nervous system when you self-sabotage. So, your brain runs this incredibly sophisticated reward system. And the primary engine of that system is a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Now, a lot of people assume dopamine is just the pleasure hormone, but that's not quite right. Dopamine is the motivation hormone. It's the anticipation hormone. It's the wanting hormone. When your brain releases dopamine, you feel this irresistible drive to act. It's literally the fuel that makes you crave action. But here is where the trap snaps shut. Your brain is brilliant, for sure, but it's also kind of blind. It cannot distinguish between a healthy reward that builds your future and a destructive habit that wastes your time. It just blindly seeks that chemical release. If you've spent years training your brain to release dopamine through endless scrolling, through sugar, through procrastination, guess what it's going to constantly demand? Exactly those cheap triggers. And when you finally try to do something hard, something that requires effort and doesn't give you an instant flashy reward, your brain just refuses to release any dopamine at all. Without it, you don't feel desire. You just feel pure, agonizing resistance. Think about how insanely fast the cycle of sabotage actually happens. You sit down to work. Instantly, you feel a sudden spike of emotional discomfort. Almost unconsciously, you reach for the phone for relief. In that split second, your brain learns a devastating lesson. Distraction equals safety. And just like that, the motivation to do the hard task entirely vanishes. This brings us to a much deeper conflict. The war inside your head. Because what we're really talking about here is a gritty, literal war happening inside your brain every single day. This is the battlefield of neuroplasticity. Everything you repeat becomes a physical neural pattern. When you reach for your phone to escape discomfort, you are paving a massive, high-speed neural highway of relief. The more you drive on it, the smoother and faster it gets. That is exactly why change feels so impossible. When you try to focus, you aren't just making a simple choice. You are trying to hack a brand new, unpaved trail through a dense jungle of resistance, right next to a perfectly paved highway. It takes intense, exhausting struggle to forge that new path. And this brings us to a profound truth, a truth you absolutely have to accept if you want to win this war. There is no emotional change without discomfort. None, period. Every time you do something hard, even when every fiber of your being just wants to quit, you're laying down dirt on that new trail. Every time you give in to the easy option, you are pouring fresh asphalt on the old highway. Discomfort is the necessary currency for growth. Have you ever noticed that nervous flutter in your stomach right before you start a difficult project or a really tough workout? So many people misinterpret that sensation. They think it's fear, they think it's danger, or a sign they should just back away. But the truth is, that flutter isn't fear at all. It's neurological activation, it's adrenaline. It's your body physically preparing itself for power and focus. We have to stop trying to run from that sensation and start recognizing it as the feeling of impending growth. So, if we know the battlefield, how do we actually fight? Let's dive into rewiring your brain. How do we move from the philosophy of this internal war into tactical, everyday reprogramming? It requires a very practical, very strict approach. First, you must set the limit. You need a dopamine detox. That means establishing environments where the cheap dopamine is completely cut off. No phone before the important task, no shows before the work is done. Second, you build the ritual. And third, you execute without negotiation. You know that little voice in your head that says, I'll just skip today. I'll get back to it tomorrow. That is your brain actively trying to sabotage you. You must establish an absolute rule. You refuse to entertain the voice of tomorrow. You show up, period. We can break this tactical reprogramming down even further. You literally have to trick your brain into releasing anticipatory dopamine before the hard work even begins. How do you do that? Celebrate tiny wins instantly. Even just a quiet, I did it, after finishing a small task, signals a reward to your brain. Tolerate the empty space of boredom, because in that silence, your mind learns to seek deeper sources of desire. Pair your hardest tasks with sensory rituals. Make the same coffee, sit in the exact same spot. And finally, visualize the victory. Close your eyes. Genuinely feel the pride of finishing. When you do this, you activate the exact same neural circuits as if you were doing the work. You are literally building a future memory.
As you go through this, it's so important to understand the critical difference between wanting and liking. Dopamine is the drive of wanting. Endorphins, on the other hand, fuel the reward of liking. Here is the secret. You do not have to enjoy the hard work initially. The goal right now is just forcing the brain to want to do it. The liking, that comes much later, after the effort, when your body floods with endorphins. So don't wait to like it, just train yourself to want it.
Which leads us to a crucial rule: consistency over intensity. To win this war, you must start absurdly small. I really have to warn you here. The biggest mistake people make is trying to fix their entire life overnight. They want to wake up at 5 a.m., work out, meditate, study, and eat perfectly, all starting tomorrow. But when you do that, your brain goes into full survival mode facing all that radical change, and it will sabotage the entire operation within 3 days. You have to silently bypass your internal resistance. Start with 1 minute of exercise, 1 page of a book, 1 single task. It is never about the intensity of the effort on day 1. It is entirely about the repetition.
Because ultimately, success isn't about natural talent. It's about conscious repetition and architecting an environment where discipline is simply the easiest option. Question those limiting stories you've been telling yourself for years. Remove the visible distractions completely from your space. Keep the tools that help you in plain sight. Remember, the brain is fundamentally lazy. It will always take the easiest path available. So, your only real job is to engineer your surroundings so that the right path is actually the easiest path.
Finally, we come to the most important piece of the puzzle: a reason bigger than yourself. Because even with all the tactical reprogramming and all the environmental design, it will all fall apart if you don't challenge the very foundation of your desire to change. Mere wanting is just incredibly fickle. If the only reason you're pushing yourself is just because I want to, I promise you, it won't hold up. Motivation will inevitably vanish. Some days it's roaring like a fire, and other days it disappears completely. And on the days when the motivation is gone, those deeply paved old neural highways will instantly reclaim control, unless you have an anchor that is much, much deeper than the momentary discomfort you are facing. You need a profound reason that forces you to show up no matter what. So ask yourself right now, why do you actually want this? Dig deeper. Unearth the true purpose for your internal war. Because once you find that anchor, the biology of sabotage stops being your master and starts becoming your ultimate weapon. So, what is your anchor going to be?